Can I ask you something? And I mean honestly. Have you ever looked at someone who speaks English so naturally and wondered, why can't I do that? Because that's exactly how I feel almost every single day.
Every single English learner has asked that question at least once. The difference is that most people blame the wrong thing. They think they're missing grammar or vocabulary, when that's usually not the real problem.
That's what confuses me. I know thousands of words. I finished grammar books. I listen to English podcasts every morning. Sometimes I even understand movies without subtitles. But real conversations, they completely destroy my confidence.
Let me ask you something. When you're watching a movie, nobody is waiting for your answer. But in a real conversation, someone is looking at you, expecting a response within seconds. That's when your brain starts to panic.
Exactly. And then everything happens at once. I'm trying to understand the question, think of an answer, remember the grammar, choose the right words, and avoid making mistakes. It's like my brain suddenly has 10 different jobs.
And that's the moment you lose the conversation. Not because your English is bad, but because you're trying to build the perfect sentence instead of communicating a simple idea.
You know what's embarrassing? Last week, a tourist stopped me on the street and asked me for directions. It was probably the easiest English conversation I could ever have, and I completely froze.
Did he understand his question?
Every single word.
But you couldn't answer?
Not immediately. My mind went completely blank. I knew I had learned those words before, but suddenly they felt like they belonged to someone else. I just stood there smiling like an idiot.
That's one of the biggest myths about speaking English. People think forgetting words means they never learned them. In reality, your brain simply couldn't find them fast enough under pressure.
So you're telling me I didn't actually forget English?
Exactly. Think about it. 5 minutes later, when you told your friend what happened, you probably remembered every word you needed.
Actually, yes.
That's because the pressure was gone. Your English didn't suddenly improve in 5 minutes. Your brain relaxed. And when your brain relaxes, language comes much more naturally.
That makes so much sense. I always thought I needed another vocabulary book.
Can I challenge you for a second?
Sure.
Don't answer me yet. I want everyone listening to answer this too. Imagine someone walks up to you and asks, "What did you do last weekend?" Don't pause. Don't translate. Just answer in your head, right now.
Wow.
What happened?
I didn't answer. I started thinking about grammar first. I was wondering if I should use the past simple, the past continuous, or maybe even the present perfect.
And while you were thinking about grammar, the conversation was already over. That's exactly what happens in real life. Native speakers aren't choosing grammar rules. They're sharing ideas.
So grammar isn't the first thing I should think about?
Not during a conversation. Grammar's like the steering wheel in a car. It's important. But if you spend the whole drive staring at the steering wheel, you'll never notice the road in front of you.
I've never thought about it that way before.
Most learners haven't. They've been taught that speaking starts with perfect grammar, but speaking actually starts with confidence, and confidence starts with allowing yourself to sound imperfect.
That's difficult. Every time I make a mistake, I feel like people are judging me.
Can I tell you a secret?
Please do.
Native speakers make mistakes every single day. They forget words, they restart sentences, they change their minds halfway through speaking. The difference is they don't panic when it happens.
So maybe the problem isn't making mistakes.
Exactly.
It's being afraid of making them.
Now we're getting somewhere. But there's another habit that's quietly making your speaking worse every single day.
Another one?
Yes, and I promise, once you notice it, you'll never practice English the same way again.
Okay, now you've got me curious. You said there's another habit that's making my English worse. If it's not grammar and it's not vocabulary, then what is it?
It's something almost every learner does without even realizing it. In fact, you probably did it 3 or 4 times during this conversation. And the scary part is, it feels like the right thing to do.
Now I really want to know. What is it?
You keep translating every thought before you speak, not just sentences, every single idea. And every time you do that, you're teaching your brain that English is a puzzle instead of a language.
But how else am I supposed to speak? I think in my native language. That's normal, isn't it?
Of course it is. Nobody expects you to suddenly wake up tomorrow thinking like a native speaker. But if you always translate first, your brain never gets the chance to build direct connections in English.
Direct connections?
Exactly. Let me show you what I mean. If I say the word coffee, what appears in your mind first? The word in your language or the image of a cup of coffee?
Definitely the image. I can almost smell it.
Perfect. That's how your brain naturally works. It thinks in pictures, experiences, and emotions. Language is only the label you put on those things.
So when I hear the word coffee, I shouldn't be translating it.
No, because translation adds an extra step that doesn't need to exist. Your goal isn't to connect English to your native language. Your goal is to connect English directly to meaning.
I think I understand, but I don't know if I can actually do it.
Let's find out. We're going to play a little game. Don't overthink it, just say the first thing that comes into your mind. Beach.
Sun, warm weather, the sound of the waves, vacation.
Good. Did you translate anything?
No, actually I didn't.
Exactly. Your brain created images immediately. That's the skill we're trying to strengthen. Now let's make it a little harder.
I'm ready.
Describe your bedroom. Don't think about grammar. Pretend you're showing it to a friend who's standing at the door. Go.
Well, it's not very big, but it's comfortable. There's a desk next to the window where I usually study. My bed is against the wall, and there's a bookshelf that's honestly much messier than I'd like to admit.
That was excellent.
Really? I made a few mistakes.
Maybe, but did I understand everything you wanted to say?
Yes.
Then congratulations. You communicated successfully. That's what real conversations are about.
You know what's funny? While I was describing my room, I wasn't thinking about English at all. I was just looking around in my imagination.
Exactly. You were describing pictures, not translating sentences. That's why the words came out more naturally.
So why don't teachers focus on this more?
Because grammar is easier to teach than confidence. It's easy to give someone rules. It's much harder to teach them how to stay relaxed while speaking.
That explains a lot. At school, I could get perfect scores on grammar tests, but when someone actually spoke to me, I felt completely unprepared.
That's because passing an English test and having a real conversation are two very different skills. One measures what you know, the other measures how quickly you can use what you know.
So, how do I become faster?
By stopping your brain from chasing perfection. Let me ask you something. When a little child is learning their first language, do they stop every sentence to fix their grammar?
No, they just keep talking.
Exactly. They make hundreds of mistakes every day, but every mistake gives their brain more experience. Adults often do the opposite. They stay silent until they're sure they're right.
That explains a lot. At school, I could get perfect scores on grammar tests, but when someone actually spoke to me, I felt completely unprepared.
That's because passing an English test and having a real conversation are two very different skills. One measures what you know, the other measures how quickly you can use what you know.
So, how do I become faster?
By stopping your brain from chasing perfection. Let me ask you something. When a little child is learning their first language, do they stop every sentence to fix their grammar?
No, they just keep talking.
Exactly. They make hundreds of mistakes every day, but every mistake gives their brain more experience. Adults often do the opposite. They stay silent until they're sure they're right.
That explains a lot. At school, I could get perfect scores on grammar tests, but when someone actually spoke to me, I felt completely unprepared.
That's because passing an English test and having a real conversation are two very different skills. One measures what you know, the other measures how quickly you can use what you know.
So, how do I become faster?
By stopping your brain from chasing perfection. Let me ask you something. When a little child is learning their first language, do they stop every sentence to fix their grammar?
No, they just keep talking.
Exactly. They make hundreds of mistakes every day, but every mistake gives their brain more experience. Adults often do the opposite.
They stay silent until they're sure they're right.
That explains exactly how it is with me. Sometimes I know the answer, but I stay quiet because I'm afraid it won't sound natural.
And every time you stay quiet, your speaking muscles get weaker. Speaking is a skill, just like playing the piano or learning to swim. You don't improve by watching, you improve by doing.
Can I ask you something a little personal?
Of course.
Can you ask me something a little personal?
Of course.
Have you ever felt nervous speaking another language?
Absolutely. The first time I spoke to a native speaker, I was terrified. I repeated simple sentences in my head 5 or 6 times before saying them out loud. And by then, the conversation had already moved on.
Seriously? I thought confident speakers never experienced that.
Every confident speaker has a story like that. The difference is they didn't let one awkward conversation convince them they were bad at languages.
That's actually encouraging. It makes me feel like maybe I'm not as far behind as I thought.
You're probably much closer than you think. But there's one final mistake that almost guarantees you'll stay stuck, even if you study every single day.
Wait, there's still one more?
Yes, and honestly, it's probably the biggest one of all.
Okay, now I have to know. You've already changed the way I think about grammar, vocabulary, and even translation. So what's the last mistake? What is this one thing that's keeping so many people from speaking English confidently?
The biggest mistake isn't about how you study, it's about what you expect from yourself. Most learners believe they have to sound fluent before they allow themselves to speak, but fluency doesn't come first. Speaking does.
That sounds simple, but it's honestly difficult to accept. Every time I open my mouth, I hear my own mistakes, and then I start comparing myself to native speakers who sound so effortless.
That's because you're comparing your Chapter 1 to someone else's Chapter 20. You only hear their final result. You never see the years of awkward conversations, embarrassing mistakes, and uncomfortable silence they went through.
You know what's strange? If one of my friends made a mistake in English, I'd probably encourage them and tell them to keep going. But when I make the exact same mistake, I'm incredibly hard on myself.
That's one of the biggest confidence killers. You speak to yourself in a way you'd never speak to another person. Confidence doesn't grow from being perfect, it grows from giving yourself permission to improve.
So you're saying the voice in my head is actually making my English worse?
Sometimes, yes, because before anyone else has the chance to judge you, you've already judged yourself. And once that happens, your brain stops focusing on communication and starts focusing on avoiding mistakes.
That explains something I've noticed. When I'm relaxed, I speak much better. But the moment I think I have to sound impressive, everything falls apart.
Exactly. Pressure changes the way your brain works. Instead of expressing ideas, you start performing. And conversations aren't performances. They're simply people sharing thoughts.
So what should I focus on instead?
Focus on being understood, not being perfect. If someone understands your message, you've already succeeded. Every conversation is practice, not an exam.
I wish someone had told me that years ago. I spent so much time trying to memorize perfect sentences that I forgot the whole point of learning a language, connecting with people.
And that's exactly why children become fluent so quickly. They don't care about sounding perfect. They care about being understood. Adults often reverse those priorities without even realizing it.
Can I ask you one last question?
Of course.
Do you really believe someone who feels completely stuck today can become a confident English speaker?
Without a doubt. Not because they'll magically learn 10,000 new words overnight, but because the moment they stop treating every conversation like a test, everything begins to change.
So if someone is watching this right now and thinking, that's me, I understand English but I can't speak it, what's the very first thing they should do after this video ends?
Don't open another grammar book. Don't memorize another vocabulary list. Instead, spend 5 minutes talking to yourself in English about your day. Don't stop to translate. Don't stop to correct every sentence. Just keep speaking. Your goal isn't perfect English. Your goal is continuous English.
Only 5 minutes?
5 focused minutes every day are more powerful than 1 hour of silent studying. Your brain learns by producing language, not just consuming it.
I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned today. I've spent years listening, reading, and watching English, but almost no time actually speaking it.
Exactly. Input gives you knowledge. Output builds fluency. You need both, but if you never practice speaking, your confidence never catches up with your knowledge.
You know, I actually feel different now. Not because my English suddenly improved in the last 15 minutes, but because I finally understand why I kept getting stuck.
And once you understand the real problem, you can finally start fixing it. Remember this. Every fluent English speaker was once someone who couldn't finish a simple sentence. The only difference is they kept speaking anyway.
I guess it's my turn now. No more waiting, no more overthinking, no more translating every sentence in my head. I'm just going to speak.
That's exactly where fluency begins. Not with the perfect sentence, but with the courage to say the imperfect one.
And if you're watching this with us, we'd love to hear from you. What's the biggest challenge you face when speaking English? Leave a comment below and let's help each other improve, one conversation at a time.
And remember, don't learn English just to know more words. Learn English to tell your story. We'll see you in the next episode.